Welcome to TAMA Talks, brought to you by the Torrance Art Museum Advocates. I'm Janine Madden, current TAMA president, and I'd like to thank you for watching. Today, we will be discussing work which is currently on view in the main gallery at the Torrance Art Museum in a show called Studio System, an Experimental Residency Project. The Studio System Project is a unique attempt to bridge the gap between artistic practice and the public. First held in 2015, Studio System seeks to bring the dynamism of the artist's studio into the museum space, encouraging audiences not only to see works as they are in progress, but to interact with the artist to discuss inspirations, sources, thoughts, feelings, content and context, as well as chart the progression of the works over the month-long period that the project encompasses. This exhibition is on view through today, June 29th, and it culminates in a closing reception tonight from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the museum. It's open to the public, and we invite you to attend. The Torrance Art Museum is located at 3320 Civic Center Drive in Torrance, California. And when exhibitions are on view, the museum is open from Tuesday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. Admission is free and donations are gratefully accepted. This discussion is being recorded and will be posted to our YouTube channel with all of our previous TAMA Talks. You can access it from our website, www.tamadvocates.com. Joining us today is Studio System resident artist Tania Salha. Tania is an interdisciplinary artist living and working in London. Her practice comes from the notion of better understanding a matter or the self, often the relationship between both. Characterized by its fluidity between media, her work depicts movement and deals with the concept of change through a constant shift between painting, film, sculpture, and installation. Tania creates complex and dynamic compositions using contradictory materials, disarmed from their original qualities and functions. And we are happy to have her joining us today to discuss her work in Studio System at the Torrance Art Museum. So welcome, Tania. Thank you so very, very much for taking time out to join us today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I have a few images that I wanted to share.
This is me, and this is in the first, I think it was the second day I arrived to Torrance. I started work immediately. Well, as you said, my work, I've been fascinated in the past few years in the concept of change and transformation on an individual and on a nation level. I was trying to understand when and why does change happen. And I came across a saying to Zizek. He's a contemporary philosopher. I mean, he's a clown, to be honest. I disagree with a lot of his views, but he said something I found really interesting, that it's only that we despair and we no longer have any hope that change happens. So it's basically the true courage is just to imagine that not to imagine an alternative, but to accept the fact that there's no more alternatives. So it's that understanding of hope, and when hope stops being a survival tool and becomes the things that actually kill us, So we need to let go of hope for us to be able to do a major change in our lives. So I was very interested in that concept. But when I got accepted at TAM, I really wanted to not work on something that I've been working on, but just to be open as much as possible. I've heard a lot about TAM as a safe space for artists to really, truly experiment. And I wanted to take that challenge. So I came with no idea about what to do. But the first day I arrived, I had a very disturbing incident. and it made me think of cultural differences, and it started make me think about how we constantly need to rethink where we should draw the line according to where and who we're dealing with. So I started drawing the line, basically, thinking about all the different incidents that I was sure I drew the line, but somehow it got tangled up. And so on my second day in Torrance, I started working on, I love working on cardboard. And this cardboard actually is, uh, uh, I found the best cardboard to work on is cardboard that you use to protect floors when you're painting. So it's a protective, it has a protective quality that I really like. And on top of that, it's very solid. And what I do is I seal it, I give it one layer of sealant, and it becomes like a canvas. It's, and I love the quality, the fact that you know, it's not very valuable, so you don't feel very precious about any work. It gives me that freedom of experimentation. So I started working on immediately on, and that's really easy to prepare. So I started immediately drawing a line, exploring how, and this incident, it got tangled up in my head, and yeah, I these were the base of the work that I will be doing later on during the residency.
So the idea, for those who may be listening for the first time, is Studio System is a project, an experimental residency project where 12 artists, unrelated artists, oftentimes they don't even know each other, are assigned a space inside the Torrance Art Museum to create a site-specific, to some degree, installation for a period of 1 month. And the museum was opened from the 4th of June all the way until today, for our community members to come in and not only see and witness the work, but also to engage with the artists. And the idea was that not only is the residency experimental, but also, you know, the idea of bringing artists together, but also giving those artists the freedom, as you have beautifully explained, to experiment on their own, to come in with ideas about new projects or different projects from what they normally work in. Several of the artists that I've had the opportunity to interview for these episodes of TAMA Talks have expressed a very similar divergence from the work that they normally work on. And so it sounds like the same thing happened to you, influenced by events that occurred.
That's very true. Later on, as we go through the slides, you see not only influenced by incidents, also influenced by the colors, by what I've seen in art. Also, you know, you get influences from the artists that you're working around. You know, it's hard to work around the 12 other artists that not admire a certain part and to try to implement it in your own work. It's these kind of influences that makes each and every artist's work more richer as they do more residencies. And I always try to make the most out of it. So this is a video that I recorded during my second day when I started the large sketches. Um, so here I was developing the idea, and at the same time I was in the next few days I was gathering inspiration from Torrance, understanding more about the museum space itself. Um, I was really impressed by the ceiling height, and I wanted something to challenge that or to have a discussion with that. Um, so these were in the back of my head at the same time as I was developing the sketches.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
okay,
Oh,
so
and
this
these
is
are
the
even more developed than the
yeah,
first.
they kept developing as I work and as I rethink the idea and as I rethink the composition. But I also, as you can see on the side, I did a large scale yellow and blue painting. And that was and this is how I love to work. I love to jump between different media. So I was doing sketches, then I moved to painting, and then I was doing some outside some sculpture work. But in that painting in specific, I was really trying to let go of all myself and just let myself absorb as much inspiration as possible. And by then I have seen a couple of shows in LA, and I've been to the sea and the sun, so that all the blue and the yellows were coming out. And also some techniques that I've seen during the shows, like the washed out and the masked out shapes. So I was allowing some influences. So I had this totally huge, massive piece, experimental piece on the floor that was on the side that I jumped into when I felt like, okay, I need a break from the sculpture and the main piece that I'm working on.
Wow. Okay. Your own built-in little mental health break.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
so this is the patio, yes?
yes, I was really lucky to have that space right by the garden space of the museum. So I had the indoors and a little bit outdoors, which was great because I had to do some building work and it would have been a little bit noisy to do it inside. So if you can play the video here, you will see the how I work in that interdisciplinary manner. So I would be outside. Now this is here a little bit more when I developed the idea a little bit more. I've had uh, I started you know, looking for material, and one of the really impressive material, yeah, before I talk about material, this is the sketch that I was doing to create the sculpture, the main sketch. And this is the experimental painting. So going back to the sculpture, I knew that it needs a structure to hold it, and I want it really high and big. And I found these beautiful poles that I've never seen in London. They're fence poles. Um, and they're strong and sharp pieces, yet when you examine them they have this vertical ribs that makes them super fragile. If you put any nail in it, they just split vertically.
Mm.
So they had this massive scary quality, but in fact they were very delicate. I love the nature of them. Also, they have this function. They're used for fences, and it's one of the things that I also really enjoyed, admired in LA, is all these electricity poles and the fences that you have there. So I wanted to use that material. And later on, I found out that actually these are the leftovers after they cut a tree. They cut them into horizontal boards, and then the middle part where the circle of the tree start, that ends up being these poles, which is the heart of the tree, which I found really beautiful, you know. So I found these and I started working with them as the base of my sculpture. It was a nightmare to get them to be stable enough because they are very fragile in nature. Um, but yeah, it worked out,
Yeah,
I think.
and they don't really appear so. I mean, they do look rather
They
they do look rather
exactly.
sturdy. Yeah.
They look very strong, very steady, but I mean, if you come and examine them at a closer, I didn't have a close-up image. They're full of vertical ribs from top to bottom, you know, everywhere.
I
So
see.
you can see their fragility when you get close to them.
Okay. Oh my, they're enormous.
Yes, yes. I mean, one of the challenges to have in residencies is, especially as a sculptor and especially as ambitious as I am with scale, you know, is to have this extra pair of hands to actually put things together when I've finished building. So I've got some help for like half an hour just to put the basic structure together. And then I started
Okay.
basically, yeah, using material. The I got most of my material from Torrance. Um, uh, I wanted the core or the basic base of the line to be as flexible as the line. So I use these flexible ducts. I mean, I've used them before. They have this breathing function, detox and cleansing concept to them. But I also like the quality that they have a huge flexibility for transformation. They can be anything, and they can be small, they can be big. I really like them. So I work with this material. And then I wanted something as flashy and as LA or as California. So I went with and as alarming as the color red. So I went with this material. Um, so yeah, this is about material, and this is about putting the basic sculpture together.
See, oh my, enormous. Okay. And this is duct, you were saying duct, like duct material?
Yes, it's a flexible duct. Usually you can use it. They use it for venting, for ACs and conditioning and vents.
Okay, yes, okay.
So this is on the day that we got the news about my father-in-law passing away, and I knew I had a very limited time to finish. We had to wait till I changed my tickets, and um, as I told you offline, that he was one of my early mentors. He always told me, "You're as good as your last piece," and I know he would have wanted me to finish it. Although the museum had absolutely no pressure to get any work done, the nature of the residency is to actually just experiment, and I did that really hugely. But I really wanted to do that for my father-in-law, so I tried to finish as much as possible. So this is part of the work in progress, and in the next slide also you will see some more of that. This is putting the first part of it, and then in the next video, you will see another part of the progress. This is the last day that I was there, um, re-going through the sketches so I know how to place all the other bits. I hope now you can see the relationship between how the sketches developed into the sculpture.
Yes, it's amazing. When we think about sketches, we don't necessarily um when we think about sketches, we think about a sketchbook and a pencil. And
Yeah,
so
I've always had this thing about large scale. I always feel like using my whole body does make me go into that state of painting physically and emotionally. I don't know, but also I learned that working with scale helped me understand the scale of the sculpture that I'd like to make. So it was almost impossible for me to do things on a small scale. I've always worked on, I usually used for quick sketches the craft paper, and they come in a huge rolls like this. So it's light. I can attach it easily with a blue tack on a wall, and I do my sketches with charcoal. For more developed sketches, I use harder cardboard. Also, I use the base as wall paint sometimes, and this I use the base as wall paint. So I just keep my material really simple, but I do invest in scale because it does make me feel much more comfortable in working this way.
good, good. And so let me see. Just another.
I think with those, yeah, that would be my last video.
Okay.
So this is just ending up the last touches. I realized there's something that was not right. I mean, as an artist, we really need, I think one of my early mentors also told me that a true artist for him was the artist that knows when to stop working on a piece. And yeah, it's always a challenge, but I think being leaving it where it was at the time that I had to leave, it was a perfect spot to end it on, because
Okay.
this expressed more what the residency is about. It's all about experimenting. It's not about the end result.
Yes, for me, again, I have a biology background, so the whole thing is very cardiac to me. Like, the color and the way that the way that those top pieces are extending, it looks very arterial to me. And so, for me, it is a work of the heart. It's beautiful, actually, beautiful.
Thank you.
So now that you have returned to the UK, what will happen to the piece?
Actually, I had a very quick chat with Max that they might display it at that extended part at the museum, time at the museum. But this, I'm not, we still have to discuss this further.
Okay,
But at the
okay.
moment, yes, I've held on the installation till I hear further from Max.
Okay, perfect. Yes, it's a very, very large piece. And even in the lobby space where we typically have work on view, I don't know if the lobby is that high. I feel like inside of the gallery, I can't remember, to be honest, how high the lobby ceiling is, but
Yeah.
it is an extraordinary piece. And so I'm sure you would like it back. We will figure out a way to get that back to you. That's actually one of the things that TAMA does, is we do help with shipping costs and transportation costs. So, we can work hard to try and find a way to get this particular piece back to you. I would think that when you create a piece and some event happens in your life during the process of creation, it does imbue that piece with a greater meaning, perhaps. Did you find that to be the case this time?
It's always the case. It's always the case. However, I have learned to let go of work when it needs to go,
Okay.
and I think certain pieces are done for certain. Uh, for me, it doesn't bother me that the work is not eternal, or it does not. There's that quality of living for a certain period of time that actually really appeals to me. Uh, so yeah, whatever happens to the piece, I will be just very grateful just to have had the experience to make it and to have it documented.
Okay,
Uh,
good, good. When I was chatting
and
with Jackie. Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
and I,
Oh,
I
go ahead.
really, I really wanted to add just one a huge thank you to Tama, because I was also given some kind of financial support towards the material that I've invested in the show. So that always comes as a huge support for artists. Not only that, and it's a huge boost of confidence and encouragement. So thank you very much for that.
Absolutely. Over the last couple of years, we've decided that in addition to the transportation costs or any extraneous costs that TAM needed from us, that when Max made the decision to provide stipend or off, I should say, when he decided it would be great to be able to give artists stipends. What does the board think? And we were all just thrilled that he wanted to use us in that way, because whenever someone comes in and drops a dollar or $5 or $10 in the donation box, or when they purchase a drink tonight at the reception, all of that money in turn goes right back to artists and curators in the forms of stipends, and residencies. So we are just really happy to be able to support you. And I've joked with Max, I feel like sometimes the amount isn't really even cover a paintbrush, but Craig was saying, Craig Knight was saying that and you echoed, every little bit helps. And so we're really happy to be able
Exactly,
to
exactly.
support
And also,
artists.
yeah, it's a great help. It's a great way of encouragement. I mean, it's organizations like that that keep us artists going. So yeah, it's very much appreciated.
Well, great, great. It's always good to hear feedback from the artists. So
Thank you. So yes, and this is basically literally the last 5 minutes before I leave. It's running back to it, putting the small ladder back, fixing that last thing that you think needs to be fixed, and then yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay.
I'm really sorry I couldn't be with everyone else, and I had to rush without saying a goodbye to all the colleagues. But I'm sure we have made a long, I have definitely made long-lasting friends, and I'm definitely going to be in touch with a lot of the artists, and I've made a lot of great connections during the residency. So I'm really very grateful for the experience.
That's so nice to hear. I know that as an extraordinary curator of artwork that Max is, he also is a curator and cultivator of relationships. And I think that all of the different kinds of collaborative efforts that he has put together, Trist and Nomad and this,
Amazing,
yeah,
amazing. For
it's
me,
amazing.
he's a real guru, hero, for all of us artists, and I look forward for more projects, hopefully with him. I mean, he's a great inspiration for sure. He was for me, he did go beyond the duty to make sure that I get the most out of the residency, whether in connections, whether in even understanding better the art scene in LA, having discussions with people, and also, the residency itself as an opportunity, creating opportunities like that for thousands of artists. I mean, that's heroic for me.
Yes, yes, we would agree as well. So if you do have some time, do you have some time to discuss the work that you've done previously to the TAM residency?
If you'd like to, I'm always happy to go some quickly through previous work. I
Sure.
mean, yeah, this piece was one of my last pieces. This actually was in an exhibition with Max, and this is how I met Max, through an exhibition in London, a group exhibition we had together in London. Um, this explained a lot about the material that I always use. And because I work between sculpture, and my other main media is actually film and film installation. So tripods always come in my work as a natural tool I have around me that goes into sculpture naturally. So uh, yeah, this is a piece I did. I use the fusion of my different media that I work with.
And are those telescopic tripods, do they extend? Is that what the little joints are? Do they extend, or is that just their?
Yes, yes, they're typical tripods, but they're quite large. They're for large format cameras, so they're quite large tripods. So this is quite like around three, just a bit shy of 3 meter high. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
This is another piece. This is some of my projection installation piece. It's done with multiple projections, actually 3 projectors over a very thin fabric, and it's a very it's a piece that you indulge in as a viewer. So you would walk through between these scars, and the scars, because they're thin, they reflect the image on multiple layers. So you walk between these layers, and your shadow actually becomes part of these layers.
Oh,
Yeah. So,
interactive. Wonderful.
yeah,
Yes. Okay. Oh my, yes. Okay.
you can see more examples of it. Yeah, in the slide. So if you see the middle one, there's somebody taking a picture. So their shadow become part
Oh,
of.
here, yes. Okay. That's amazing that you become part. I think anytime you can become part of the artwork. Yesterday I had a chance to talk with Taylor, Moon about her cave work and how she was saying that she used some of the artists, her fellow artists' hands to create
Yeah,
part of her work. And so I think that
amazing.
that's
I love that little
yeah,
work.
and how you can walk inside the cave. So I think any kind of artwork where the viewer can be somehow a part of it also, other than that emotional visual connection that we make to work, I think it's just extraordinary. So, and this
Yeah.
was in the UK, yes.
Yes, that was in the UK. You can watch the video. I mean, I did film it in video, so you can watch that on my website or on my Vimeo. Uh,
Okay, wonderful.
that experience. Yeah,
Okay, good. When I post this video, what I've been doing is I've been adding as a comment the artist's websites, so people will be able to see the video on that.
yeah. This is actually a film that I made. And actually, this is going to be exhibited again on the 8th of July, next week almost, at the Bermondsey Project um, Gallery here in London. It's a film. Yeah,
Is
it's a film.
is this video a film also?
Yes,
Oh,
that is also a family, and you can also see it on my Vimeo account. I'll send you
okay.
the these.
Okay, perfect. Mm.
There's more. Yeah, it's all about worms. Um, I think it's one of these pieces that you really have to watch and experience. It's very ASMR kind of feel
Okay,
to it.
yes.
Um,
And these are live worms?
These are live worms. I do work with worms. And I don't know, have you interviewed Ashton within the
Yes,
residency?
I was just gonna
Yes,
say, hopefully
I
you
was.
and Ashton made a connection with
Yes,
his
we
mealworm.
did. Yes, we did. And we were excited about doing a collaboration together from the start. You know, I got focused a little bit I got excited about my little project that was going on. And I think we ran out of time, but we definitely have conversations about doing something moving on. But I mean, he immediately told me that he can see the connection of the knots of the worm with the knots of the work in the museum.
Yes,
Because you see, for me as an artist, especially when I do work unthought of and leave it totally to inspiration, it takes me a while after the work has had life or presence in real life for me to make sense of it or to understand why and how and why it exists basically. And it's the hardest for me to give them names, so early on. Um, so it was really reassuring to have all of these artists around me with these fresh eyes and can tell you, yeah, there's a huge relationship between that work and that work, and always have that feedback, a very, very constructive feedback from fresh eyes and, artists, um, like-minded artists, basically.
absolutely. And I do think that we've commented previously in other talks that, seemingly disparate artists with different practices coming together for a residency like this, there's bound to be some sort of overlap with, whether it's an inspiration or process or completed work. Um, there does be there's a bit of a not coherence, but cohesiveness, a thread that sort of runs through all of the artists in some way, one way or another, when the entire project is done. And
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
so it's always surprise. It's a surprising after effect.
Definitely. Definitely influences run and you get really insights not only from artists. I mean, you get a lot of visitors to the museum, and I thought that was really amazing because you always have that one visitor really challenge the way you're thinking about your work and why your work exists. I always have that in residencies where you've got that one visitor, and it's always impressive when it comes from somebody who um, has, I mean, not a deep understanding in art, you know. So
Yes,
so
right.
that also comes really valuable.
Yes, I mean that idea, and it's one of the reasons why we do these talks is so that, you know, people who for whom this type of artwork is unfamiliar. You know, we often get people who will come into the Torrance Art Museum who don't necessarily have, like you said, a deep art background or art education background. And maybe they just come in to appreciate it or be exposed to something new. A lot of people seek out, I find a lot of people seek out artwork that they're familiar with because it provides a sort of tangible, you know, like I love this is not me, but I'm the people, you know, oh, I love impressionists, so I'm going to go see a Monet exhibition, or, you know, I love abstract art, so I'm going to go see a Lee Krasner exhibition. We tend to gravitate toward what we like and what we know, and when we are confronted with work that we're not familiar with, it does sort of disrupt us on the inside to say, you know, what is this? How can I open my mind a bit to understand not only what this work is saying to me, but what the artist's intention was when they created it initially? So it's one of the reasons why we do these talks, is we can hear the second part of that question. The answer to the second part of that question is, you know, what is it that inspires artists to create the work that they do?
For me, I don't go look for inspiration. It's more I respond to things that make me question, anything really that makes me question. Um, uh, sometimes inspiration comes from a word somebody says, or from an incident, or from a situation that bothers you. For me, it's a way of processing something when when I'm making art. Is my process is and as I said earlier, I found out that it takes me a while to understand what I have made and why I've made it. And I'll give you an example. Like, as you can see, there's spikes that always shows in my work. Um, and sometimes my work is really soft, and it isn't a knot constantly. It's really soft and cushiony, like the one on the right at the moment. And sometimes it's really harsh and bare and spiky. And I've realized, you know, that, you know, I'm really interested, as I told you, in change, and that made me really be somehow an expert in observing human beings and behaviors. And I've realized, you know, that as a person, as a human being, when I'm feeling threatened, spikes always comes out of my work, you know. And it made me think about also animal behavior. You know, you've got animal have one reaction to danger. So bears will make themselves bigger in front of danger. Hedgehog will turn into and turn into a position, spike's position, you know, into a spike ball. Other animals play dead, you know, as a response. Now, human being, we have all these kind of responses, all of them, to respond according to the situation. But we do tend to fall into patterns of certain reaction, you know, and this is when I feel we fall out of balance. So I always have. So certain things I don't determine, but it more determined by the situation or the times that I am making the work. Other things, work comes from an actual concept, and it's an actual concept that I've been thinking of over the years. And it's often also comes into many layers of different ideas and thinking. If you see that piece on the floor with sheets and little bits in it, Now, this is basically was during lockdown, and I have not seen my mom in a long time. Um, I had a um, I had a really very understanding relationship with my mom, but it was never open to all kind of discussions. And I've realized that the only time that I can actually talk to her and be myself is that when we're sitting both making a certain dish, which is rolled wine leaves, which is a traditional Lebanese dish. I'm originally born in Beirut. Um, and I haven't spoken to her in a long time, and I really wanted to have a conversation with her. So I dedicated a month of which I sit down and I roll wine leaves just in a way of me trying to communicate with her, even if it was mentally only. So I started making wine leaves and, started feeding my family more. And then I wanted to some kind of document these conversations. So I wanted to keep them. And I started understanding the material that I'm working with, which is the actual tree leaves. They dry up into a different colors and according to different stage of the rolling. So after 2 days, they become lighter green and then towards orange as a tree leaf would dry up, you know. So I found the colors really fascinating. So I started rolling them with previous work that I had that was made out of clay and glass. Um, so I started making these rules and having all the conversations, and I ended up making around 5,000 or 6,000 pieces.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and I've laid them according to the conversations on uh, what you see at the bottom is my grandmother's scarves, head scarves. Um, there's something that conversation from one generation to another between me, my mom, and my grandmother that I wanted to have in the piece. So yeah, these are just conversations between me and my mom that I could not have at the time that I needed to do the most. So this is as simple as it is. Deep down, I have also did documentation about each conversation, what it was about. It was around time of when, you know, the time, the memory of my dad passing away. So there was a lot of conversation about that. There was a lot of jokes that I have wanted to tell her, but I never told her. So each group had a different conversation, and I have the documentation of that, and I want to do something further with it, but I had never had the chance to. And what I like also about the piece is that the other side of it is a different color to the newer ones, which is at the end. So you start with dark green and you end up with an orangey color pieces.
Did
So
she
yeah,
did she see this piece?
she did not see it physically in person, but obviously she did see pictures of her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So each piece do have its own reason to be made and and its own background and story, and but it does have also at the same time many different other levels that are connected sometimes to other projects, sometimes they're not. Yeah, this piece actually is what I've put inside the piece after in the wine leaf. So this piece did go back to nature. And this is I mean, this is what I loved about working here. I was working with raw clay and glass. And I love these two material because they're both made out of, sand, but each has came out through a different process into a two totally different material that have totally the opposite qualities,
Right.
one is transparent, sharp, the other one is moldable. And I love working with raw clay. I really get upset when I fire a piece. I know sometimes I have to fire the piece, but it somehow feel like I killed it, because there's that quality of role play that you can change later on. You can, it can stay alive. You know, you can. I don't know. There's some. It's an alive piece, and once I feel I fire it, I burn it. These are older work as you go older. So this is my first film I made with worms, and that was during lockdown. Um, that piece came also as a reflection to um, the reflection to the situation during lockdown. I was thinking about, I built this habit of getting in touch with an uncle of mine in Lebanon that I did not get in touch with him for a long time. And I was getting in touch with him during the lockdown because obviously we have now more time. Because he has this tradition of he knows he has, I mean, he's deeply knowledgeable person in astronomy um, and you know, the psychology of dreams. But on top of that, he takes pleasure in reading the future. It's called tasseography, which is the reading the coffee ground, the future in the coffee ground. Very ancient, is a very ancient um, practice that came actually from China, from reading the tea leaves,
Leaves, right,
and it came
right.
all the way to the Middle East, you know, through Asia, and it turned out in Turkey into it turned into coffee. You know, the blend between Africa and Asia, and the Middle East was the place where things, you know, were exchanged. So it became a coffee tradition, and yeah. Anyway, so he was reading the lines for me, and I was, you know, getting upset with that concept, you know, that you're stuck with the future is written to you and it's there. And how can I change the future? So I started doing these sculptures that have imitate the lines of these coffee grinds. And I remember I introduced the worms as a way to add more lines that can have their own minds in changing to the actual composition. So originally they were a way to change the future, or my future, or my way of looking at uh, the future changing naturally, organically by itself, and it's not a written thing that it's there and I can't do anything about it. Just
Sure.
in a way of grabbing hold of my future.
Yeah.
Um, but obviously there was other layers, and I went through a deep, a darker version, a darker stage while doing this piece as the lockdown was developing. So you see, I don't know if you see these bits where the worms are lying on, they look like flesh. They
Yeah.
were actually made out of soap. You know, the soap became a commodity during the lockdown here in the US. So, um, and my daughter at the time was using soap because she had this hobby of soap making and making bath bombs. So, and I didn't have much material to work with at the time. So I used the soap, melted it, and she actually showed me a technique how we can fluff it into different shapes. And I started adding colors to it, and it's amazing because it gives you these really organic shapes that you can work with. So I had soap, and I was working on my patio, so there was some natural element that started falling into the piece. So I had dandelion seeds in it. I don't know if you see at the top right image, in the corner of the image, literally you see something yellow that's a dandelion seed. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you can watch also the film on my Vimeo account. It's and
Well,
yeah, I'd like to talk about a little bit about the music of the film in case you managed to listen to it.
yes.
It, it was it has these really amazing noises that we did, me, my daughter, I mean, as a family, we worked with soap, washing hands noises, and We worked, and the sound effect were all made with cello and some homemade things that related to the piece. So we all some kind contributed to the sounds of the piece. So it's all like some kind of a homemade sounds, but it came out, I felt really very relevant.
Good. Well, and again, you're saying I'll be able to link your Vimeo account and so people can watch the videos.
Perfect, thank you.
Of course.
I did my MFA in painting, so I'm basically a painter, but this is my first breakthrough into sculpture. I used to do painting and film, but that was my first breakthrough into sculpture, although I did do a lot of studies in sculpture, but I never took it on. But this is my first sculpture at the Slade School of Art in
Okay.
2019.
It's very evocative of the soap pieces in the previous piece that we just looked at.
Exactly,
Yeah, it's very
exactly.
visceral.
And the chicken wire as a material was a very, very dear material to me and has a whole story by itself. But obviously, hopefully, we cover it in another interview for sure.
So we thank you very, very much for joining us today and talking about not only the piece that you have currently on view at the Torrance Art Museum that people will be able to see tonight and walk around and absorb tonight during the closing reception from 6 to 9, but also other work that you've done. And like I said, when we post this video, I will be sure to include your Vimeo site with all of your videos.
Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure to have that talk with you, and obviously to have the residency was amazing experience. So I want to thank you and thank all the staff at Torrance Art Museum. They have been so welcoming. And yeah, thank you.